So this year marks the 10th anniversary of the 10-year anniversary of Fallout New Vegas, and because it came out in 2010, and it got a Metacritic score of 83. Despite its bugs and glitches, it got an 83 Metacritic score, and by a lot of Fallout fans, it is considered the best Fallout game. Not because it's the best performing, but because of the heart and the lore and the writing and the characters that went into it. So before I go into what this game means to me, I'm just going to give you a little bit of history. So first the history, and then we'll get to what this game means to me after the cut. So Fallout. Let's make this completely real. Fallout came about due to Interplay, because they basically, D&D was really big, and they wanted to do a D&D game set in the post-apocalypse, but they couldn't get the rights to the to the deal. So what happened was to the rights to the IP. So instead, they took a generic user role-playing module called GURPS back in the day, and they basically rejiggered the stats from what we're used to special, and Fallout 1 was born over at Interplay. And I mean, arguably speaking, the first Fallout was seminal. The first Fallout is good. Fallout 2 is even better, because basically the engine was already made, so they were able to basically, make shit even more badass. Now, with that being said, Interplay was making some bad financial decisions even back then. They were basically kind of like the Acclaim of their day, where they were always one bad game away from bankruptcy, and eventually it caught up to them. But before it did, they had put into production Fallout 3 Van Buren, which was supposed to be this game that had a lot of stuff to do with the West Coast, and a lot of those elements would eventually wind up in Fallout New Vegas in some way, shape, or form. Interplay went under. The legendary developers at Interplay who made some of these great RPGs went on to create their own legacy of great RPG studios. I mean, you had Brian Fargo, who was one of the original people who created Wasteland and shit like that, created In Exile Studios. Another group of people who worked on Fallout 1 and 2 created Troika Games, which Troika Games was one of those hotshot indie studios back in the day that was made to go against the mold of typical game development, and it did, and they made some great games like Arcanum, Steam and Magic, and Vampire the Masquerade, and the Temple of Elemental Evil. And of course, a little studio called Obsidian. So, I mean, all of these studios had a pedigree. So basically what happened between all of this is that Obsidian basically was made up of these people who worked on the original IP, and were like, hey, let's do this. They got a chance to work on the next Fallout game, because at the time Bethesda was busy working on Skyrim. Now here's the thing, okay? From Oblivion to Skyrim to Fallout 3, all those games had like a 4 or 5 year development cycle. Okay? Every single last one of them had a 5-year development cycle, and they still came out as buggy pieces of shit. Obsidian had 18 months. And in 18 months, they made a Fallout game that is arguably better than any Fallout game that Bethesda has ever made. In my opinion, Fallout New Vegas is better than Fallout 3. It's better than Fallout 4. It's better than Fallout 76. despite its bugs and glitches. And I will get into why I love Fallout New Vegas after the cut. So, the thing that makes Fallout New Vegas to me such an astounding game is it's greater than the sum of its parts, but its parts are really good. What I mean by this is that the gameplay is on point. It has a different color scheme than Fallout 3. It's not dark and dreary. And unlike Bethesda's take on Fallout, where the world is falling apart and it's like a shitty parody of 1950s McCarthyism Americana with a radiation-fueled tent, Fallout Fallout New Vegas and Fallouts 1 and 2, the first Fallout is about society falling apart, but Fallout 2 is society is trying to rebuild itself. And Fallout New Vegas goes even further, showing that society is trying to rebuild itself, and how the dichotomy between these different, like, how should society rebuild itself becomes a major issue. I love that shit. And Fallout New Vegas isn't afraid to do that. And you think about, like, these well-written characters, these interesting backstories for the characters. There's different shades of gray for each character. Even characters that you're like, man, this is clearly the villain, their motivations aren't purely evil. And they were able to do all of this in 18 months. It takes Bethesda years to make games. Obsidian did it in 18 months. That is dedication for your ass. So Fallout New Vegas is my favorite Fallout game. And, it's been a decade. I played it. The first time I played Fallout New Vegas was actually on my PS3. And it was a tough game to play on the PS3 because it was not optimized to run on the PS3. The second time I played Fallout New Vegas, I played it on PC. And really, the best way to play this game is on PC. With tons of mods and extra content added in, cut content added in. With all that type of stuff, the game is just great. But even without all of that, the game is totally worth playing. It's worth playing. The characters, the companions, the story, the environmental storytelling. You can tell that the people who worked on this game really cared about what they were doing. Versus Bethesda, which treats the Fallout franchise as just a vehicle for them to push some bullshit gameplay idea. Like Fallout 4's big thing is, we can push, Fallout 4 is basically a settlement simulator. Fallout 76, what if you played Fallout in multiplayer? Now, I'm going to keep it real. I do think that you could do a Fallout multiplayer game. As a matter of fact, I have a video coming out tomorrow where I'm going to be talking about how you could ideally do a Fallout multiplayer game and make it work. But, basically how Bethesda did it was literally the worst way you could do it. It's literally like someone saying, asking someone, have you ever had sex? And they're like, yeah. And then they describe it, and they describe something that is not only not sex, it's literally the worst way to even fake having sex. Have you had sex? I'm not a virgin, I've had sex. Well, how'd you do it? I pulled down my pants, gained an erection, and stuck it in a fire ant nest. Oh! That's basically what Fallout 76 was. It's like the worst way you could have made a online Fallout game. But Fallout New Vegas really does capture what the Fallout experience should be, which is society is trying to rebuild itself after this tragic event And even though all these things have changed, a lot of things stay the same. You know, there's still political factions. There's still people worried about their families. There's still drug dealers. There's still, people just trying to make a way. It's just, there's more bullshit involved with it. And that makes Fallout, to me, especially Fallout New Vegas, the best of the modern Fallout games. So, with that being said, I can get to my conclusion after the cut. So, in conclusion, to me, Fallout New Vegas is what the Fallout franchise should have been moving towards. Like, Bethesda should have had someone play Fallout New Vegas and said, wow, no wonder people like this game. Let's take what was good in this game and carry it forward into the next installment. Instead, they basically shit on that game and only use aspects of it as a marketing tool for their own shitty ass products. And that's kind of sad. So with that being said, Fallout New Vegas is a labor of love. It's a better game than Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 and Fallout 76. And, I mean, I think Fallout 76 had a 2.5-year development cycle, maybe 3. Fallout 4 had a 5-6-year development cycle. Fallout 3 had a 4-5-year development cycle. Obsidian was able to make a better Fallout game in 18 months than Bethesda was able to make in 5 years. That just tells you how shit of developers Bethesda is when it comes to making Fallout games. So, with that being said, this game is 10 years old. It had a short turnaround time. It's still a great game. Yes. People are going to say, hey, it's buggy. Look, I found that the Steam version of this game was giving me problems modded and playing it. I got the GOG version, which is essentially been optimized an older game to run on newer PCs. It runs perfectly. I haven't had any issues. So my advice to you, if you want to get into this game, is get the GOG version, the good old games version. It's on sale for like $7.99, so that's a good deal. I'm holding out. I'm looking forward to whenever Fallout 4 New Vegas is done. I will definitely play that game when it comes out because I would love to see this game ported over into the Fallout 4 engine. That would be awesome to me. So with all that being said, that's the end of this video. Stay tuned. I will have 2 videos coming out tomorrow where I will be talking about how to make an online Fallout game. A good online Fallout game, actually. Let me qualify that. A good online Fallout game, and not what we got from Bethesda. So, I will eventually upload that video tomorrow, and it's not going to be too long, maybe 15-20 minutes. So that being said, rate, comment, share, subscribe. I have a podcast Wednesdays and Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we talk about gaming news and stuff like that. If you want to reach me, you can reach me at mrredfoxbsbusters@gmail.com or at me at Twitter at mrredfox91. There's a link to the Discord. Peace and have a good day.